In the world of advertising, the handsome face never loses its appeal. Handsome but not trying too hard, confident but never showing off. After decades of modern promotion, through changing fashions, lifestyles, and even the acknowledgement of self-doubt, the power of masculine allure remains. One becomes used to seeing fragrances come and go, and to see old friends become unrecognizable, and current fashions lack appeal. But it's comforting to see classics stand the test of time, and in a niche world, to know that wonderful scents can still be had for a few pounds. The success of a men's fragrance, just as with a women's fragrance, is not only because it appeals to men, but also because of the appeal of men. A fragrance enhances an individual's attraction. It emphasizes positive elements of masculinity and sometimes gives the illusion of entry into a prestigious world. Let's look at some great men's fragrances that have stood the test of time or are important in the history of men's fragrance. Floris No. 89 was launched in 1951. Floris of London is the oldest English perfume house. It's been family-owned since 1730, and today it's run by the 8th and 9th generations of the family. Juan Floris arrived in England from Minorca in 1730 and secured premises on Jermyn Street. Floris initially set up business as a barber and soon began making and selling perfume. No. 89 is named for the address of the Floris premises in Jermyn Street, still operating today. 2 years after Floris launched No. 89, Ian Fleming introduced James Bond into a post-war world, looking for a hero. The character was embraced not least because of his ambivalence and complexity. No. 89 was a personal favourite of Fleming's, and he references the House of Floris in several of his Bond novels. The orange oil opening blends with lavender and neroli, giving No. 89 its classic cologne quality. The orange gives quite a different feel to lemon cologne. Orange is a touch more ornate. Aromatic and slightly sweet nutmeg gives a beautiful accent to the airy, powdery rose heart, and the woody base of sandalwood, cedarwood, and vetiver. No. 89 has been described as a quintessential English gentleman's fragrance. As an interesting side note, if you smell the nozzle on a bottle of No. 89 that hasn't been sprayed for a day or two, you get an almost exact replica of how Old Spice used to smell before the 1990s. It was a delicious scent that my granddad wore, clean and a little dandyish. The internet has many videos suggesting No. 89 is James Bond's scent of choice, the association deriving from No. 89 being Ian Fleming's favourite. In 2022, Floris produced the scent 007 to commemorate the house's association with Bond. Like No. 89, it contains orange and rose, along with boozy rum and juniper, a nod to Bond's favourite martini, and carnation, a reminder of the red flower Bond wears with his white dinner jacket in Goldfinger and Spectre. The wonderful smell of the scent is very appealing, manly but insouciant. Bond's virile masculinity and cool bravery is emphasized by the contrast between the woody cologne and the very unrugged rosy powderiness. The blend of ingredients gives the rose a very different character to a woman's fragrance, but it's there nonetheless. The secret is that the scent is not trying too hard to be masculine. Bond might think, I don't have to prove my masculinity or bravery, it's what I do every day. Fleming tells us that Bond has dark, rather cruel good looks, and he even drew him and described him as having similar features to the musician Hoagy Carmichael, but with black hair. Another excellent Floris scent for men is Elite, launched in 1980. It sits somewhere between Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, which I'll be discussing shortly, and the wonderful Jules by Dior, which I'll save for another time. There's a marvellous fir note and an ambery dry down. This was the favourite scent of David Bowie. Seemingly effortless elegance is one cornerstone of masculine style. Gianni Agnelli, who took over the running of his family's firm Fiat in 1966, is considered to be one of the most stylish men in history, a style characterized by nonchalance and savoir-faire. Agnelli and his wife Morella, who Truman Capote described as the European swan numero uno, were part of the international jet set, living a glamorous life of sensational parties, sleek yachts, fast cars, and luxurious villas. Agnelli's impeccable taste and occasionally eccentric style choices continue to influence gentlemen's fashion today. His Italian-cut classic suits and impeccable taste were married to his idiosyncratic personal touches described as sprezzatura, or studied carelessness. He wore his wristwatch over his cuff, and sometimes his tie slightly askew, as if to say, I'm not at a job interview or audition, I've already arrived. Agnelli is said to have worn Penhaligon's Blending Bouquet, a bright and herbal cologne originating from 1902, clean and understated. The theme of discreet and beautiful masculine scent is important, especially in men who are immaculate in how they present themselves. The Italian company Brioni made suits worn by Pierce Brosnan in all of his James Bond movies and by Daniel Craig in Casino Royale. Brioni created a new fragrance in 2022 called simply Brioni. The good news is that the bottle is an attractive blue with a snappy magnetic top, and I got this blind buy for a bargain price. The not so good news is that it's very much a modern fragrance that lacks subtle refinement. Mysteriously, it starts out as almost undetectable, but somehow gets stronger and stronger. Pleasant notes are knocked sideways. The effect is neither discreet nor gentlemanly. The soft violet is choked out by a loud foghorn cedar woodiness that's combined with a violent pepperiness. These very loud woody lavender pepper notes spoil thousands of men's fragrances today, in my opinion. There is nothing to balance the loudness. At some point I'll talk about Kouros and Lauder for men, powerful and excellent men's scents, which are balanced with tremendous appeal and character. Brioni has been compared to Fahrenheit, and I can see where this idea comes from. But in its original form, Fahrenheit was infinitely better mannered and unique, whereas Brioni's effect can be found in the very many scents of today, for example, in many of the Zara fragrances. In my video on Chanel fragrances, I talk about Chanel Eau de Cologne, especially its supreme quality, and I look at the history of Eau de Colognes. I make some suggestions for Eau de Colognes that give a longer lasting result, like Edward Rudnitska's Moustache by Rochas, and Eau Fraiche for Dior, not forgetting Acqua di Parma Colonia Intensa. Who doesn't love the citrus herbal bright opening of Eau de Colognes before they fade and disappear? If you're looking for distinction, quality and complexity in men's fragrances, Guerlain offers excellent choices. In 1965, Jean-Paul Guerlain created the classic Habit Rouge, the name a reference to the red jacket worn by riders. Top notes are orange, bergamot, palisander rosewood, basil and lime. Middle notes are carnation, rose, jasmine, sandalwood, patchouli and cinnamon. Base notes are benzoin, vanilla, amber, oak moss and leather. The effect of Habit Rouge is unique because it manages to remain refined and chic while combining numerous notes, always managing to stay balanced despite having a density not usually seen in masculines, and a dryness that heightens orange, rose, vanilla, resins and leather. There is a lot of vanilla and creaminess from the benzoin, but the orange note, which is not zesty, imparts a lightness to the scent. There have been many versions of Habit Rouge over the years. This is an EDT from a few years ago. The EDT has more citrus and the EDP is woodier and denser. The scent is widely available and is often sold at reduced prices, so you can easily wear this very classy fragrance every day and on every occasion. It's the embodiment of a great scent available to the mass market. Habit Rouge imbues unmistakable polish, but it has a wide appeal. Apparently Keith Richards wears it. Interestingly, according to Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger wears Chanel's Cuir de Russie, and when they were together she wore opium, and Jagger's daughter Jade wore Le Bleu and had done so since she was 10 years old. What great choices! In 1985, Jean-Paul Guerlain launched Derby. It's a wonderful combination of spicy leather, carnation, patchouli, woods, and nutmeg. Here is a bottle from 2012. Derby is a luxurious fragrance of smoky intensity. The carnation note is unusually prominent for a masculine, but it combines brilliantly with the nutmeg and woods. Like all great men's scents, Derby is instantly recognizable. As usual with Guerlain, their ingredients are very high quality. Derby is considered to be one of the greatest scents ever created. Its structure is outstanding. Chamade pour Homme is not a version of the famous Guerlain feminine floral from 1969. It is in fact an elegant masculine launched in 1999. A chamade was a military drumbeat calling for a truce or surrender, and today it's used as a symbol for the heart beating in fear or excitement. The composition opens with notes of bergamot and black pepper. Violet, hyacinth and nutmeg are wrapped in base of woods, vetiver and leather. It was composed by Mathilde Laurent and Jean-Paul Guerlain. I got through a bottle of this when it was in the B bottle and always received compliments for it. The violet and spices are wonderful. This is not a widely known scent, but it has elegant, balanced refinement. The last Guerlain masculine I want to look at is Frenchy. This is probably my favourite lavender scent. There is lemon verbena, neroli, sage, and base notes of vetiver, ambergris, and tonka bean. The verbena-tinged lavender predominates, and there's a briny saltiness that's very original. I love this because there's no heavy vanilla, which is so often blended with lavender, but sometimes vanilla can be rather sweaty. French is delightful, fresh, slightly musky and crisp. It's a unique scent. French's Chamade pour Homme and Derby were grouped together as part of the Parisienne collection in 2012, but don't appear to be available on the Guerlain UK website today. Guerlain do frequently bring fragrances back, so I hope we'll see these three again. Now let's look at perhaps the most refined and suave men's fragrance ever created, Pour Monsieur by Chanel, which originates from 1955. Chanel launched this scent as Chanel for Men in the US and a gentleman's cologne in the UK. This is a quintessential men's fragrance that has a marvelous Sicilian lemon neroli top note blended with aromatics. It's one of the great openings in all perfumery. Middle notes are cardamom, ginger, coriander and basil, with base notes are oak moss, vetiver and cedar. The fragrance was created by Henri Robert. Pour Monsieur is quiet, restrained and elegant in the EDT version, which is in fact the true version of the scent. Here is the EDT, not much left, from about 2005, and here is a concentrate from around the same time, and another from the 80s. The concentrates are heavier and sweeter, and not exactly the same scent. The 80s version is really good in itself, as it has an extremely heavy oak moss base. Pour Monsieur is a chiffre built around oak moss, rather than a fougere, which was unusual in 1955. In the original EDT, after the lemon drop radiance subsides, the gentle, delightful oak moss and cardamom remains. The EDT has apparently been combined with the concentrate nowadays, so the character has changed somewhat. It's a shame because the debonair lightness and lemon citrus of the original Pour Monsieur are quite sublime. Now I come to a fragrance that I wore for several years from the age of 20, Pour Homme by Paco Rabanne. This is a transporting scent that instantly takes me back to my youth. I had very little money as a student, but my mum would keep me in supply, buying it duty-free on her frequent holidays. Created in 1973 by Jean Martel, it's astonishing how little this scent has changed over time. Top notes are rosemary, clary sage and rosewood, middle notes are lavender, geranium and tonka bean, base notes are oak moss, honey, musk, amber and tobacco. The opening is a rush of invigorating fresh aromatic herbal citrus. The herbs and aromatics persist. Herbal barbershop soap becomes more prominent as it develops into a unique and distinctive scent. There is none of the carnation soapiness that's in Guerlain's vetiver, a slightly difficult note that was common in women's fragrances in the 30s. The background notes of geranium and tobacco add refinement. Paco Rabanne Pour Homme leaves you smelling great for ages. This fragrance shows us exactly why fougères are so popular with men. It's more than freshness and cleanliness, it's effortlessly beautiful. This great men's fragrance is still widely available and popular. The current price on Amazon is less than £30 for 100ml EDT. In my opinion, it's better than any fragrance currently in the Creed range. The older I get, the more prejudiced I become against expensive niche perfumes. In the last 15 years, many fragrances have doubled or tripled in price. Chanel has been at it too. The exclusives used to be £230 for 200ml. Today that won't buy you 75ml. 200ml of Cuir de Russie, which I consider to be a unisex scent I wear myself, is now £405. Wonderful as it is, it's not a better perfume now than it used to be. As for the scents that start at £750 or thousands of pounds, I wouldn't buy them even if they contained angel tears. In truth, you can be a fragrance nut, and even if you live for 300 years, you could still find enough wonderful and expensive scent to keep you happy. I'm not against anybody charging whatever they want for a scent, but I find costly scents lose their appeal when their prices double, and they never smell as sweet again. I want to mention another Paco Rabanne scent, Ténéré, which was created by Pierre Wagnier and Rosendo Mathieu. Like Pour Homme by Paco Rabanne, it's classified as an aromatic fougère, but it's a very complex scent that's floral and animalic. Cassia, honey and patchouli are prominent. It's a distinctive scent which I wore off and on at the end of the 80s. It wasn't a smash hit and was discontinued long ago. I once managed to find a huge bottle, 400ml in Selfridges at a sale, a bargain, but I still got through it pretty quickly. This is a wonderful 80s men's fragrance that's interesting because of the brilliant blending of the floral, aromatics and animalic notes. Fougère is the French word for fern. Of course, ferns don't smell of much, so fougère is an imaginary description that suggests freshness, green and cool earthiness. Lavender and cormoran, which has a slightly sweet smell like new mown hay, are the traditional basis of fougères. The first fougere was Hubergon's Fougere Royale in 1882. Here is a bottle of the modern version, no doubt radically different from the original, but still a classy if austere fougere. Now here's a bottle of New Mown Hay from 1980, from Pinot. It says on the bottle that it was made to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the house, and here is a bottle of Caron's Le Plus Belle Lavande. Maybe if I put these two together I'll get Fougere Royale. Of course I'm just having fun, but fougères are important cornerstones of masculine fragrances. I want to talk about aromatic fougères, an important group, on another occasion. There's so many great scents in this group. Now I'm going to enter difficult water, because I want to look at two of the greatest men's fragrances, both from Dior, Eau Sauvage and Fahrenheit. Both are too important to miss out, but it's well understood that Eau Sauvage, as sold today, is not at all the same fragrance that was so distinctive and beautiful from its launch in 1966 until it became unrecognizable at some point in the mid-2000s. Although Fahrenheit is still just about recognizable as having some connection to the original, it began to lose its character very early. Edmund Rudnitzer, who created Eau Sauvage, was responsible for several important fragrances of the 20th century: Femme de Rochas, Diorella, Eau d'Hermès, and Diorissimo, to name but a few. Rudnitzer commenced his formal training in perfumery in 1926 at Rouault Bertrand Dupont in Grasse. He wrote extensively about perfumery and its relevance to culture and human development. Rudnitzer believed that scent created a sensory experience capable of evoking emotions, that it had important cultural significance. Indeed, he felt that perfumery, if approached artistically, had the same impact that visual arts or music have. He also believed that a perfume should be appreciated as a culmination of the perfumer's art, not merely as a list of notes or a clever structure, just as a great painting is not merely an arrangement of colours and lines. A great perfume is an artistic, beautiful artifact, and an expression of the perfumer's imagination. I think Eau Sauvage was a perfect example of what Rudnitzer meant. It was so alluring and distinctive that, rather like good looks, it gave the impression of virtue in the wearer. In 1966, Dior used photographs of Alain Delon, taken by Jean-Marie Perrier, in Saint-Tropez to advertise the new scent. One image was used again in 2009, with a cigarette erased, when Delon returned to Dior as the face of Eau Sauvage. In 1966, at 31, Alain Delon's striking good looks and star status made him a natural choice to promote a groundbreaking new scent. Delon worked with major directors from early in his career and continually pushed himself to brilliant performances in films like Plain Soleil, Rocco and His Brothers, The Leopard, Les Samouraïs, Le Cercle Rouge, and Monsieur Klein. For years, Dior used the brilliant illustrations of René Gros to advertise Eau Sauvage, often showing men in relaxed situations or reflecting modern fashions. Millions of men wore Eau Sauvage. It's estimated that 80 million bottles have been sold, no doubt because it effortlessly bestowed a masculine polish and well-mannered gentility. To say that Eau Sauvage is a citrus floral that blends rosemary, coriander, carnation, patchouli, orris root, sandalwood, rose, lavender, and edione, with a base of oak moss, vetiver, musk, and amber, is accurate, but the list of notes does not convey the impact and elegance of the scent itself. Rudnitzer used the aroma chemical edione methyl dihydrojasminate, a synthetic molecule, for the first time in Eau Sauvage. It imparts a transparent, radiant, and fresh jasmine-like scent. The importance of edione in Eau Sauvage is disputed, but the lightness of green jasmine-like florals and citrus herbal freshness is descriptive of the original and distinct clarity of the scent. Here is a bottle of aftershave and EDT from the late 70s and a bottle of Eau Sauvage Extreme from the 80s. All of these are excellent. I've always loved the concentrated form because it keeps the essential character of the scent for a very long time, adding creaminess to the dry down. The best source on the internet for telling the vintage of fragrances is the Raiders of the Lost Scent website. It can be great fun trying to establish the age of your treasures. So what happened to Eau Sauvage? Who knows what exact process leads to the disappearance of a great scent from the marketplace? It's like a great work of art being removed from the Louvre. We don't know whether it's gone forever, but we're left dismayed. The disappearance is all the worse because an impostor has replaced it in the same position and been given the same name. It's like seeing a Leonardo replaced by a Vetriano. No doubt Edmund Rudnitzer would be vexed to see the name of his eau sauvage and the image of Alain Delon used to sell millions of bottles as something that doesn't smell like his great creation. But listen, if you like the recent scent called eau sauvage, or for that matter the bloody awful sauvage, then fair enough. Ultimately, the appreciation of scent and tastes are individual. But I agree with Rudnitzer that scent is culturally significant, and despite the commercial pressures of retail, the endless search for newness, the smell of a scent is not secondary to the name of a scent. Shakespeare said, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, but a rose would not be so alluring if it smelt like an old sock." How clever of Dior to use the extremely popular actor Johnny Depp and combine his image with the Eau Sauvage legend to create Sauvage, but there is still sleight of hand occurring. I'd be delighted that Dior is successful in making money, if only they would do what they did with Miss Dior, market an unrelated scent with the same name, and sell the original literally from under the counter, naming the original scent Miss Dior Classic. The world urgently needs Eau Sauvage Classic. I was in Selfridges in London a few weeks ago, admiring the pretty bottles of the Dior Privé collection, with their pretty colours and nice names, like Rouge Trafalgar, Rose Star, and Gris Dior. I've not been a great admirer of the scents inside the bottles, but I did used to like 1947. I was approached by a salesperson, and I asked him what happened to 1947, and he said Dior had withdrawn it, despite it being a bestseller. Then they said they brought back 1947, but it was different, and it no longer sold well. A sad but true story. Which brings me to Fahrenheit, one of my favourite scents when it came out in 1988. I mentioned this scent in my video on violets. It was the creation of Jean-Louis Suzak, Michel Amarac, and Maurice Roger. I first became aware of Fahrenheit from the advert made by Ridley Scott when it was launched. In fact, the advert itself must rate as one of the best ever. It manages to show a man as both heroic and vulnerable at the same time. He moves along a pier in various weather conditions, effortlessly suggesting the Fahrenheit scale. Then one day in 1988, I was in Selfridges and smelled Fahrenheit for the first time. It was strange, magnetic, and wonderful. I wanted to smell like that, and I did for as long as it was possible to buy Fahrenheit as it originally appeared. I wasn't alone. For a while you could walk into a nightclub in London and be hit with a wave of petrol, violet, and hawthorn. Over the years the wave had been antaeus and curus. The violet notes, petal and leaf, the strange familiarity of petrol and hawthorn in Fahrenheit, were novel, but at the same time warm and welcoming. Sadly, the magic thread that held together the original Fahrenheit soon began to unravel. Within a few years the petrol rush was diminishing, leaving the leather note to come to the fore. Methylheptene carbonate, an ester used liberally in Fahrenheit to impart an intense green-violet leaf element, was restricted by IFRA. Edmund Rudnitzer said, "A beautiful perfume is the one which gives us a shock, a sensory one followed by a psychological one. A beautiful perfume is one with happy proportions and an original form." This accurately describes the original Fahrenheit. The creators of Fahrenheit hit the jackpot because the strikingly original scent was an instant hit. Unfortunately, its brilliance did not save it. By the early 2000s, the heart of the scent had been ripped out, leaving a shadowy, vaguely familiar scent. Here is a bottle from 1988, and this one is an EDT from the early 90s. The 1988 bottle should be the Holy Grail, and it certainly is the amazing original smell. The snag is that it's the aftershave, not the EDT. I never bought the aftershave at the time, because it never had the brilliance of the EDT. If I layer this 4 or 5 times, I get a radiance and intensity like the original EDT. I'm lucky to have it. The sadness of the reformulations is that a little of the magic is lost with each change, and strange notes like caramel replace what is lost. The fates of Eau Sauvage and Fahrenheit are sad, but a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Unfortunately, the most beautiful and legendary flowers have been choked out by foghorn-aggressive weeds, until customers only recognize the thorny weeds, and so they desire the history and the name of the legend, but not the thing that made it beautiful and special. However, the original formulas do exist, and despite the worst efforts of IFRA and the people in charge of Dior Perfume, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we could have these perfumes back, close to what they once were. Of course, a parallel market has been created dealing in vintage scents, which will persist for some time because the original scents were produced in their millions. I don't have much time for the notion that good scents become dated, or that they smell like old people, and I certainly don't have a problem with every scent made after 2001. For the last few years I've worn Bottega Veneta Parco Palladiano 9 Violetta. launched in 2017, and only occasionally wear vintage scents. In truth, there's plenty of good stuff around, but at the same time, there's no denying that something's been lost, in the mass market especially. The great men's scents, whether they're light and cologne-like or distinct and exhilarating, share clarity and balance. They radiate effortlessly and suggest a savoir-faire and confidence. Great perfumes must stand the test of time and withstand the onslaught of Philistines and bean counters. There will always be wonderful fragrances available, but the loss of beauty and the passing of the years can be heartbreaking. As Marcel Proust said, perfume is that last and best reserve of the past, the one which, when all our tears have run dry, can make us cry again.